Okay. Hey, everybody. This is Matt, and we're at Texas Toast Guitars. Thanks for tuning into the Sunday night podcast. I'm a little hot in the microphone there. Maybe I need to turn down I've got too much gain going.
Are you all riled up?
In your personal volume?
I am too.
Yeah, I'm all riled up. So thanks for joining us again. This is our weekly podcast that we do every week, hence the words weekly. No, this is something that we do every Sunday at 5:00 Mountain Time. And so thanks for joining us. To my right, your left is Chris, and working the boards behind us is the lovely and talented Mrs. Texas Toast, and she will be taking some of your questions and letting us kind of vamp on those for the next hour or so. This podcast is actually going to be kind of a cool one, Chris. This is called Gibson Electric Guitar Myths and Legends, and I've got some very specific things I want to talk about. You don't even know what they are yet.
You're right, I don't.
And I'm going to surprise you. But first, we've got a couple of things that. So today is a weekend day on Memorial Day weekend. So that means school's out, which is good thumbs up to all the kids who are.
School's out, I think, anyway. It might as well be the 4th of July, and you're saying school's out.
Well, no, but I think school at the elementary school down the street, school was out on Thursday. So I'm glad that all the kids are out having fun and hope you enjoy your summer vacation. But more to the point, it's a day to remember all of our fallen service members, and I want to do that. And even it's just because if you know any veterans, even if they're not dead, now's a great time to to thank them for their service. Specifically, I want to thank Sergeant Bishop, who it's really great to have John Bishop come and work with us in the shop, and he does lots and lots of stuff for us, and he works on his own guitars, and he's done all the leather pick guards for us that we've done recently. So I'd like to acknowledge John Bishop
and his son
and his sons. Yeah, Aaron and Tim both are have either served or are currently serving. So we're not going to wait until Veterans Day to thank those guys, because I bet you those dudes have some fallen comrades we want to take some time out and thank the veterans. You don't have to be dead to thank veterans on Memorial Day. Does that make sense? No, that didn't quite work.
No, that didn't work out at all.
No, I get
they
it.
don't have to be dead.
That's right.
They've lost a lot of friends.
Yeah. So thanks to our veterans, and you guys have a great Memorial Day weekend too. Remember, it's not just about barbecues. And a big super duper shout out to Sergeant Bishop. So there's been a lot of cool stuff going on in the shop though. Before we get totally rolling crack-a-lacking on our topic, today we had a guitar was born. Right, mini pearl necklace was the name of the guitar, and that went to our friend Jeff LaQuatra. It was one of our challengers. It was a cool one. It was a metallic black Challenger with white binding and a tobacco burst back and sides. It really was classy. It had, of course, it had Hipshot tuners. Had our very own bridge. And what were the pickups at Seymour Duncan?
They were midnight Saturday night
specials. Yeah. I think those are ceramic magnets.
They're probably slightly underwound. Your favorite pickup in the world,
the Seymour. The
Marzio Super Distortion, but they're probably ceramic.
One of the things on those pickups that they actually said was that they're not scatter wound, they're machine wound, so they sound like 70s pickups, which. Of course, no one likes those until you realize, I like 70s guitar players. Anyway, so anyway, that was a cool guitar. It just left the shop just a few minutes ago.
And I think he liked it.
I think he did too.
He didn't put it down for like 45 minutes.
No,
he played it. And Jeff's one of those guys. Jeff is probably the most accomplished guitar player locally.
He's a scholastic dude.
He is, yeah. He
teaches the guitar. He's in charge of the guitar program.
The guitar program at CSU. That's right.
Yeah, and
Go Rams.
He can play and play and play. But when he comes over here, he doesn't necessarily like to play.
Well, he doesn't want to show off and make you guys feel bad.
Well, it's his job.
Everybody does.
I think that was his other thing. It's like, hey, you sell insurance, Matt. Why don't you,
talk to me about insurance?
We're all here for Thanksgiving dinner. I don't sell insurance, but you get it. The other thing is you'll be able to watch for that guitar in upcoming videos, and there's going to be pictures on the website. I've been updating the website, and you can actually go and see some of the updates that I've been making. I'm not a web designer, but we've been working on it, and I think in the next couple of months you'll see a lot of stuff. in the next few weeks, you'll probably see some things returning. The store will return, stuff like that. Anyway, but we can talk about that when that's a thing. Hold on, let me get my danger glasses because I wrote a bunch of stuff down here.
Salty replies to stupid comments.
That's right. We're going to have salty replies to salty comments or stupid comments. We haven't decided what that is yet. That's coming up.
It's a case by case.
That's coming up here in just a little bit. But some other things that have been going on is we sent out one of the modern guitars to Jim Fuller, and Jim got it. And now what we did with that was we did all the woodwork and all the paint work, and Jim did all the assembly. We did some of it
in seemingly 8 minutes.
So so watch for that too. So Jim's got his modern. It's all fired up, and it looks totally modern.
It looks totally modern.
It looks totally moderny. So that was a cool thing.
It was a cool thing.
We've got a bunch of stuff in ready for paint coming up. So if you don't follow us on Instagram, you should really start. And if you don't follow us on Facebook, I don't know what the hell's wrong with you. Follow us on Facebook. If you have trouble finding us on Instagram, Facebook, but you somehow can go to the website, there's links to Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and shit like that. So anyway, and there's a bunch more new YouTube videos coming up, and it's going to be good. But let's before we get started with our topic, I wanted to do this thing. I've been wanting to do it for a while, actually, called salty replies to salty comments. And I've got a couple of new YouTube trolls. Did you know that?
I heard about that. Yeah.
I love having YouTube trolls.
If you ain't got haters, you ain't shit.
No, you ain't shit unless you're feeding a troll on the internet. So
congratulations.
So do you have one pulled up, or is this?
Go ahead.
Let's talk about my current trolls here.
Yeah.
So hold on, I have this written down. So my first new troll is Curtis Newton, and one of the things that he said was, this was on a video for how to install a Floyd Rose trim, and he accused me of being on cocaine and a bunch of other stuff. So, whatever. So this is probably the best one. No, Curtis Newton writes, "That's what I like with this guy. If that imbecile can do it, I can too."
Imbecile?
Yeah. So,
are you saying that he's wrong?
No.
Statement?
Well, actually, what we're saying is that I have a video of me doing it. We know I can do it. Whether or not he can remains to be seen, because his video channel has absolutely zilcho videos. So yeah.
Wasn't he the one that also?
But you're not debating
maybe
the
I
point
should get ahead.
that he called you an imbecile, right?
No,
okay.
That's what he said. But
yeah.
But he basically said that I was an imbecile, and if at the end of every video I say, if you're so smart, build it yourself. That's designed specifically for dudes like that. So
well, and if you changed the word imbecile to dude, then you'd be like, yeah, man, this dude gets it.
I certainly wouldn't be replying with a salty comment.
They're not interchangeable.
So, yeah.
Right. That's what I mean.
Synonyms.
That's what I mean. And so he was like, this guy's an
imbecile.
real piece of
and
work.
And I don't want to say, I don't want to make fun of the guy because he's, lives with his mom and is, eating Cheetos in his basement.
We don't know that for sure.
Orange dick.
We don't know that.
95%.
We're just pretty sure that that's what's good. Anyway,
he calls the porn channel on the satellite radio. Maybe, I don't know.
Perhaps we don't know. We don't want to know.
Those are
anyway,
the creepiest
so that's one of my new haters. And then I have another new troll. This guy's particularly good. I love his handle. He doesn't actually give his name. He just has like a made up thing, and it's the 4 Noble Truths 2.
So there's 8 noble truths?
I don't know why there needed to be a sequel to the 4 Buddhist Noble Truths.
Apparently, there's 8 now.
I guess so. Or maybe it's the 4 Noble Truths 2 Electric Boogaloo.
It's always 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Anyway, he says, this was on our unbelievably, and I say unbelievably because I can't believe it, a very popular video about 0 frets that we did. And he says, the guy with the ponytail is obnoxiously loud and uncharismatic. Okay.
Well, I only take issue with half of that statement.
Yeah.
You are very charismatic. Yet you are
unbelievably obnoxious and loud. But it's another one of those things where, like, yeah, some dude with like a handle about, how peaceful and serene he is. Yeah. So anyway, so my reply to him was, don't forget sexy. So yeah, not only am I unbelievably loud and obnoxious and ridiculous, I'm also sexy. So
That's right.
That's right. So says Mrs. Texas. So Chris,
You charmed my pants off. And we all know how hard that is.
I once shared one of our videos with somebody, and they said it was a kindergarten temper tantrum set to music.
Again, I have to ask, are you disclaiming or
No, I'm just saying that's
objecting
what
to
they.
who said that?
Oh, okay.
Just somebody.
No, come on. Who was it?
No, it was just somebody.
Just somebody?
Yeah.
That's
Well,
funny.
It was
they,
some
they,
dude.
they had issue with us anyway. And
Who is it?
It was
I know the
it was
person?
somebody. No, you don't know
Oh,
them.
Okay.
It was but
That's awesome.
yeah, that was their response to one of our videos. I was like,
Was it
things,
some- was
things
it
in the
some-
shop are fairly light, and there's lots of goofing. There's
Yeah.
lots of, we take building guitars seriously, but there's a lot of nonsensical fun stuff, and it's like this. And
Okay, let me ask you. I'll ask one more question about who it was.
There.
Was it one of the unbelievably smart people on the Offset Guitar Forum?
No. Yes, it was. Yeah, and I was like, really?
Those guys are always classy.
Yeah,
They never do anything that's not absolutely cool.
There's a bunch of cool people there.
I'm not saying there isn't. I just said they were always classy and cool.
The
I thought that's actually pretty
temper
good.
tantrum.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I like that one.
That was fun. So
one time a guy said, I didn't know Mick Foley, the wrestler, knew how to make guitars. So I thought that was a funny one.
Funny.
Yeah, I thought it was good. Yeah.
That was way after
Oh, that was
the Dragon Steamboat, so I have no
Yeah.
interest in anybody.
it was a long time ago. You've got a salty comment that you want, or kind of a
well, it's just
unusual
a comment. Yeah, and it's kind of
Okay.
funny, and I don't know that I can read it because it's
hilarious.
Do you need to use my danger glasses?
no,
You
it's
do
not
look
that.
really good in the danger glasses, by the way.
Yeah.
Those
And
are my Farsian glasses.
Oh, I can hold it over here.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So I'll try and
if
read
your arms
this.
aren't long enough.
So this is in response to our you're still using lacquer series of videos.
Okay.
And Eagle Warrior says, you will break out in a sweat in the middle of winter with a poly-coated guitar because it does not absorb any sweat at all. The lacquer is more comfortable to play in a non-gig setting, meaning you will sweat with either poly or lacquer under stage lights, but you will sweat much easier with a plastic-coated guitar in the middle of winter. So lacquer is just much better in terms of comfort because it is uncured.
That blows my mind, dude. Let's switch back to lacquer.
I like uncured salami.
Dude.
Yeah.
What is that even? I don't even know what that means. Is that like really a problem?
I don't know.
First of all, lacquer is a plastic.
Yes, it
everybody.
is.
It's
It
not.
just never
it's, yeah,
stops drying.
it's not a polyester, but it's a kind of a plastic.
It is
so,
plastic.
yeah.
Yeah. You could in some ways you could tell the history of America in the story of plastic.
I like Bakelite.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And how, when plastic gets better, everything gets better.
Okay, so that's
that was
probably enough salty comments
Yeah.
to other people's comments. But so thanks everybody for putting up with that for the first 12 minutes of the podcast.
That was fairly mild.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't care if people go on and tell dick jokes or whatever. Whatever. If they see, are they having fun? Fine. I don't give a shit. Mrs. Texas Toast, are there any things that we need to call out, like people who are
I would just like
on board
to go over some greetings before we get
let's do that.
Maybe on/off topic.
Terrific.
Spike's Guitar Woodshed says, I'm here early instead of watching the reruns for once.
Excellent.
Thanks. Love that you could be a part on this Memorial Day weekend. And then Billy Big said that this was just in the nick of time.
Ooh.
Said he just noticed that he's subscribed on his television, but not his computer, but he's got it fixed now.
Shah. Excellent. Thanks for subscribing.
Wayne Ranson says, hey guys, love a fretboard with no markers. I went ahead and spoke for both of you, saying that you did too, because it's a lot less work.
I know that I like, do you actually like dots? Right.
I'm good either way.
Okay.
There's times when I'm like, oh, I could use a dot.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Yeah, Barefoot Mode was showing off his technical jargon, saying that he agrees with that comment and he loves a fingerboard with no thingies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I
Thingy
called him out.
free.
I called him out to quit showing off.
since '93.
I thought this might have been like a lacquer.
Yeah, I
thing.
thought so too. I was like,
I like that it wasn't.
We're
that.
really going to talk about that some more. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
LT Gold 007 loves that you're naming the haters. Well, listen,
Oh.
they put it out there on the internet for everyone to see, and it's never coming back, no matter how many times I try to delete it.
And by the way, I love all of the haters on YouTube
you gotta
because
love your haters.
they watch all the videos, and it is my sincerest hope that they, go on whatever, like dick around forum thing that they're probably on, and put, like, look at this guy, he's full of shit, and then fine.
Well, and and Les Williams has an offer.
Oh,
Suggesting an offer here that is just tell them that if they're so smart, make their own videos.
Yeah.
Dude who has 0 content and
Yes.
6 followers. How do you have 6 followers with no
I don't.
content?
Yeah, I don't. That your mom.
Oh,
Your
let's talk-
aunt?
Oh, we're gonna
Yeah.
go to your mama jokes.
It's
Is
already.
that-
Well, I'm just thinking like I don't know. My family members probably are subscribers, so why shouldn't
No,
this guy?
they also find you obnoxiously
And
loud
they do,
and
they totally do.
since birth.
Especially my Aunt Patty.
unappealing.
Were you a colicky baby?
I don't know.
Well, Gosselin Creative says, "Hi, y'all. Sorry I'm late.
Hey.
I just got back from the Indy 500."
Oh, that's one of my favorite. One of my Desert Island albums is the album
Damn it.
Man or Astro Man. Is it Man or Astro Man? And there's one of Chris's favorite songs in there has an Evel Knievel thing, and he says,
Every year I go to the Indianapolis 500.
Yeah, that's right.
You put me on the
Chris
spot.
is the resident Evil Knievel
Yeah.
expert. For
Chris is a-
sure.
Chris
I
is
go
a-
there
he-
with the men who drive and race.
and every year they have to go. They usually have to
Usually.
go as fast as they possibly can.
And some of them
They
cheat
usually have to.
and they use the nitro and the car runs really well for 4 or 5 laps and then it blows all to hell.
I used to have
And
that,
that
on
is
an
what will
answering
happen to
machine.
you.
I used to have that as my greeting on
Evel
an answering
Knievel.
machine when I was
Mhm.
like 23 or something, and then they blow all the
And they
hell.
blow all
Blow
the
all the
hell.
hell. Yeah.
So
was
yeah,
with
Chris is a
Heather
total Evel
Anderson.
Knievel fan.
Total Evel Knievel fan. Yeah. My whole entire life. I've often asked myself, what would Evil do?
You and
then I
Johnny
go,
Knoxville.
I'm not going to do that. That was really not the best call that he made.
Oh, maybe that
I'm going to
wasn't
break
such
this guy's arms with a baseball bat.
a-
I'm not going to do that. That's what Evil would have done.
So have we done enough housekeeping, or you got a few more that we need to?
Oh, I'm just replying because I feel
Okay.
bad because Spike's Guitar Woodshed said, "Hey, don't
Huh.
make fun. I've only got 6 subscribers." No
Hey,
kidding.
you
No,
know what?
listen,
The subscribers will come.
we'll find a different reason to make fun of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We'll absolutely make fun
We'll
of you. If you
personalize
had
it.
600,000 subscribers, we absolutely punch up.
If you got something to back up your claim too,
Sure.
then
Oh my God, Cheddar Kung Pao is in the house.
I
Where
don't know
have
who
you
that
been?
is.
CKP.
Where
Yeah.
have you been? You were just like took a hiatus.
No, he's busy and
you
he's
totally did like a
got to
Dave
eat
Chappelle
dinner on
thing
Sunday
stuff?
nights,
I don't
and
know.
yeah, he's got
Okay.
shit to do. He's making moves.
All right, so I don't know if this is on or off topic because you've been rambling on for 17 minutes and I don't even remember. But Gary Cherry,
Ah, yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, I have a '93 Les Paul, black with gold hardware. It was $300, and somebody told me to snag it because it was what they explained as being from the Goodwood era, and maybe that calls for a myth busting.
Okay. Let's go ahead and wrap that into our topic, which is Gibson electric guitars, myths and legends, and we'll get to that because I'm sure Chris has a lot to say about that.
Yeah, the Gibson fan in me
Yes,
is
yes.
chomping at the
So
bit to talk about that.
The reason that I wanted to talk about Gibson electric myths and legends was because it's come up a couple times in the last week. I've been talking with people about Gibsons, specifically Gibsons back in the 50s, and what kind of company they had. And I'm a huge Gibson fanboy, even though people probably think I'm not, but I am. My first guitar was a Gibson, and I love Gibsons. In fact, this is a guitar that we made a couple years ago, and we just thought we'd have it in the background. It's actually for sale, just as is. We're selling this one. If anyone has any interest in this, we'll get to that too. But I'm going to make you listen to the podcast before I tell you the unbelievably low price for this guitar right behind us, as is. So, and we'll tell you why it's as is too. But anyway, I was having some conversations with people, and one of them was with my good friend Richard Ryan, who was telling me the differences as he saw it between Fender and Gibson in the 50s. And that was that Fender guitars were, clearly made with an eye towards mass production. Okay, you can't really argue with that. However, the Gibson side of that coin was that there's a bunch of master guitar builders who worked at Gibson in the 50s. Generations or what is it? Master craftsmen that have been, what do we call it? Not
just old world craftsmen.
Old world
right?
craftsmen. That's
Yeah.
right. And I said, I've talked to some of the guys who were at Gibson in the 50s, and what they told me was that they were really good at making Gibson guitars, but they might as well have been making furniture. They didn't know how to make chairs, but they knew how to make guitars, so that's what they made. Now that doesn't mean that they were all, a bunch of hacks, but it also doesn't mean that they were, old world craftsmen who knew how to make guitars. It means that they knew what they made and they made what they made. And that's, that's okay. And I think to say that, everybody who was at Gibson in the 50s, was a master luthier is not accurate. And it kind of cheapens the contribution that everybody at the Fender factory made. You know what I mean? Just because you are a lady who's winding pickups and you've never done it before doesn't mean that you couldn't figure out how to do it. So anyway, then we're going to talk a little bit more about a different topic. But you got anything you want to say on that one, Chris?
Well, I think the story of Gibson isn't so much the guys that made the guitars. It's the people that guided the people that made the guitars.
It's the story of Ted McCarty.
It's the foreman, and it's the process.
Yeah.
And Gibson had a huge head start over Fender on the process of building guitars
because they had a factory making guitars for decades.
Yeah. So they knew all the ins and outs, and they knew how to do it.
Now, don't take this the wrong way, Gibson fans, because I'm in there too. I'm not saying that Gibsons weren't awesome, but I'm also saying that it was not a factory full of guys who had worn a spot under this part of the floor directly under their bench because they've been sitting there doing the same thing for 50 years.
So so what you're saying is if you gave one of the Gibson factory workers a pile of wood, he wouldn't have been able to make you a guitar.
Perhaps.
He would have been able
to
make most of them. Yeah. They were factory workers. They weren't.
I actually, what I think is that the guys in the Fender and Gibson custom shop today, the actual, like master builders, are probably better guitar builders than the guys who were building guitars at Gibson and Fender in 1954.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because they're guitar makers. They're not guys. They work in a factory, but that's what I mean. And so I don't think that the Gibson was just loaded with a bunch of master luthiers in the 50s.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I do think, and people talk about this, and it could be.
Are you suggesting that they're migrant workers?
Not at Gibson.
Okay.
But I would not be one bit surprised if there were a lot of Hispanic people working at the Fender factory.
Well, and I don't mean anything bad about Hispanic workers.
No, absolutely. And in
but
fact,
I just mean people fly in for work and then leave. And
what I mean is that if you ever watch any of that Super 8 video from Fender, it's basically, was it George
Fullerton?
George Fullerton's dad and a bunch of Mexican guys making cool guitars. Because that's what the workforce was.
That's true. Well, and I think they had the Eastern version of that at Gibson, and I do think they had a bunch of people at the factory that took pride in what they were doing.
Factory,
and
what the fuck is that?
And got
could you not do that, please? It's all smoky and shit. What the fuck is that?
Lord,
it's on fire.
Got a campfire going on back there.
God.
And I've heard, and just like a furniture factory or whatever kind of factory, you have this community of people that come and work at the factory and take a huge amount of pride in what they do there.
Yeah.
And the end result is a really superior product.
Yeah.
And I think that happened at Fender too. But I think they, like you said, They could have been making furniture. They could have been making boats. They could have been making
They
whatever.
didn't care. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of those people probably at some point went and worked at an auto plant at some point,
When
and did the same thing there.
It often comes up that Leo Fender couldn't play anything but the radio. But everybody at Gibson were like, these awesome badass guitar players.
Yeah.
Those guys, like I say, I've talked to them, and they to the guy are like, well, we built guitars for our job during the day. The last thing we want to do is go home and dick around with guitars.
Yeah.
They might have even said dick around. but yeah.
There's a big saying in the 40s and 50s was
dick
around. What are you doing? Dicking around.
Hey, what did your teacher used to say? Played grab ass with the Hopalong gang or something like
No,
that?
that was from a movie.
Oh, I thought that was like one of your teachers.
No. But every gym teacher in Texas in the 80s was probably, and probably in the 70s and 60s and 50s, said all kinds of stuff that they could never get away with today. But yeah.
Like, hey, Flaherty, nice butt.
No. I was told once by a wrestling coach, you stand out like a ham sandwich at a Jewish picnic. You can't say that at a public high school, even in Texas. Anyway,
Nope, he'd have to work for a Catholic high school.
Yeah, something. I don't know. Anyway, so all right, is everyone done blowing marijuana smoke? And are you quite done, Chris?
It wasn't me, man.
Hey, man.
You know me. I'm not any good at that.
I wasn't even here that day.
So is that our only myth for Gibson?
No, that's
no.
Okay,
There's
good.
more.
That's myth
But
number
wait,
one. Are there any comments? So we're also
Yes.
going to take questions as we go. So
If you would quiet down, I can ask him.
get going.
So Joe Henderson says, hello, guys. What's the best / easy way to find the position for the saddle on a Les Paul? I know the scale length, but the angle and such is haunting me. Any suggestions?
It's the easiest thing in the world. Measure whatever the scale is, and then scooch the base side back 1/8 of an inch.
Mm-hmm.
That's it?
That's it.
Wow.
Center line, protractor, measure. If you're on this one, for example, come back to 24 3/4, and then scooch it back to 24 7/8 on this side. That's easy. Bada bing, bada boom.
So Gosling Creative says, Matt and Chris, what are your opinions on Gibson Les Paul bodies being made out of just 2 pieces of mahogany versus 3 or more, such as Epiphone?
I like 1-piece mahogany bodies if you can get it.
Why is that?
Because there's no glue up. It's done, ready to go.
Because you can bring it home and cut it out.
You can do it. I don't know that some Epiphones are actually alder backs and have a maple veneer. And it's not unheard of to see actual Gibsons with multiple pieces, more than just 2.
Yeah.
Not just the Norland era stuff, but it's not unheard of to see.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that multiple pieces doesn't necessarily mean that the guitar is going to be a lesser quality instrument.
No.
That glue joints ultimately just don't matter. If you look at the classic Les Paul, there's lots and lots and lots of glue involved in that.
Remember
guitar.
that time when we did glue math?
We did glue math.
Why
was that?
Well, there was an unbelievably popular, in fact, the most popular Texas Toast video was one called "How to Make a Super Cool Guitar Out of Scrap Wood," and I took and glued a bunch of pieces together to make one of our daily driver shapes, and it had 11 pieces of wood, and they were the glue seam was. They were all going this way, and they were 1 3/4 inch by however long the strip was. So there was 1 1/4 by, let's say, 17 inches. And we averaged all that out, and then we discovered that if you do the same glue math on a Les Paul, there's a seam in the back, and there's a seam on the top that's maple, and then there's a whole seam of where the maple joins the mahogany. That's also a glue joint. So yeah, we don't think, and I think we decided that a Les Paul has more glue surface than that 11 piece.
So I have it on my phone, and I was looking at that the other day because I was erasing stuff on my phone. And I was like, oh, glue math, I'll keep that. So it was, we figured it out to the square inch, how much glue was used. And on your 11-piece body, it was like 14 cubic inches or square inches more glue. But if you reduce the number of pieces to 10, then it was the same as the
okay.
Les Paul.
Okay.
So 11 piece glued up body, piece of junk.
Piece of shit.
10 piece glued up body.
Perfectly fine.
Tone zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and there are some you have to have some adhesive holding this stuff together. The multi-laminate necks, that's another one. Yeah, multi-laminate necks, good to go.
Yeah.
Multi-laminate body, piece of garbage.
Yeah. 10 piece.
So in
body junk,
answer to Goslin Creative's question, if you like the look of fewer pieces of wood, then that's a second cool thing, and you should absolutely do it. But I don't think that there's any difference in any sonic difference between number of glue joints, what kind of glue you use, any of that stuff. But that's I'm old and my hearing sucks. So
what?
Yeah.
Does
I hope that answers your question.
Mm-hmm. But I do think it's cool. I mean, we get all excited when we have one piece alder bodies.
Yeah, I think one piece is
neat. For one thing, the grain, you don't have to worry about matching grain, and you can do all sorts of fun things with finish, and it's easier to cut them out and all of that kind of stuff. So having fewer pieces is kind of cool.
Well, CKP says that he draws the line at 987 piece body.
Me too.
That's
987.
That would be like AKA glue body.
Well, what was remember the guy's pencil guitar? That was a fun.
Give me scoliosis.
No, that thing was fun.
It is fun.
I liked what he did there. It was mostly epoxy, but it was cool.
Was it tone epoxy?
And that's cool, but an acrylic guitar is bunk.
No way, dude. My Dan Armstrongs are
Hey,
awesome.
listen, you know what? If it was a lacquer guitar, it would have been a lot.
Yeah, nothing but
dude,
nitrocellulose shock.
Oh yeah. We should make one out of ping pong balls. We should get a bunch of old school ping pong balls.
Ooh, it'd be like honeycomb. It would resonate. It would be like,
yeah. I'd like to have a honeycomb guitar made out of that cereal.
An old film stock. That's nitro.
Okay, so the other Gibson myth and legend that I wanted to talk about was recently, like I was telling y'all, Jim's Modern went out, and one of his friends used to be a writer for like Guitar Player or something.
Oh yeah,
and so he had written a couple articles about guitars, and one of the things that he and I kind of got sideways, not like in a we weren't real shitty with each other, but he was like that. He said that Fender was building to a price point, and Gibson was making a guitarist's guitar. And I'm like, kind of. I agree with bits of that. Certainly not all of it. I think that Gibson's, in when the Les Paul came out, it was in direct response to the Fender, what would become the Telecaster. It was probably the Esquire, because Fender was selling those things hand over fist, and Gibson was kind of getting caught with their pants down. And they needed to come up with something. The only thing they had was a fancier version of a solid body guitar. And it just so happened that Les Paul, the guy who they kicked out of the boardroom a few years before, was willing to work with them. In fact, wanted to work with them. And so Gibson did what they knew how to do, which was make an archtop thing instead of making it, a hollow body or an acoustic, because that was Les Paul's kind of whole thing, was it had to be a solid body so it didn't feed back. Then they made it look like one of their jazz guitars, because that's kind of what they thought it was going to be. But you've talked about Les Paul might not have been the greatest guy to have as your spokes dude.
Yeah, I think
he was already waning.
He was, and his star was faded fast. Yeah. And I think that's obvious by the fact that they changed the guitar
pretty abruptly. Yeah.
All of a sudden it became the SG.
And I don't think that from 52 to 59 Les Paul was a terrific seller.
No, it wasn't.
It's too bad, because that's the guitar that everybody wants now, especially the 57 to 59, because that's when it had the Tune-o-matic and the humbucking pickups. That's kind of represents the pivotal moment for when that guitar was ultimately the coolest guitar.
Yeah.
And it sold so well, and they had to make so many trips to the bank that it took 3 years for them to go, nope, we're not doing it anymore.
Nope, we're going to make this one now.
And you
Yeah.
figure, so like after 2 years after the Les Paul came out, the Strat came out,
Mm-hmm.
and you saw Buddy Holly with this thing, and it was
Mhm.
like, wow, Les Paul is he's the kind of the old fuddy duddy,
Right.
at Gibson, and Fender's got,
Yeah. Yeah. And if you
these
look
guys
at
with positively brimming with switches and
you look
knobs
at you look at a lot of the early rock and roll guys, which I don't think either company was building guitars for
no,
at that point, but the early rock and roll guys all gravitated towards the Fender stuff for the most part.
initially, yeah,
Strats and a little bit of Tellys, but that guitar had to look like space age.
absolutely, yeah.
In 1954.
So
The Tron guitar.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I agree that Gibson's response of making the guitarist's guitar,
Mhm.
or fancy, woods and binding and arch tops and stuff, and I love the way the Les Paul looks. In fact, I like Les Pauls way more than I like Strats. But it was sort of Gibson's only real choice. It was like, this is the move.
Mhm.
You kind of
Well, and
have
it had to go with their stuff too. It couldn't look like a like a harmony.
It couldn't look like a Flying V or an Explorer or a Modern, because those things didn't exactly sell like hotcakes either in 58.
Yeah. So let's get back to the idea that Fender was building on a price point.
That's right. So that was another point that this guy was making, was that Fender was building to a price point, the everyman guitar.
Mhm.
And I don't necessarily agree with that.
I don't think that's true at all. I all of my knowledge of Fender is from books, but I've read pretty much all the books.
You mean you weren't alive in 1952?
Well, I
buying Fenders?
was like 3.
Okay, yeah.
And for one thing, Fender wasn't following trends; they were making trends. Certainly with the Telecaster, and you can say, well, this guy made a solid body before, but nobody was mass producing them, and they set the market on that. And the head of marketing, Don Randall, was keenly aware of their position in the market, and that they could ask what they needed to get for that guitar, and they were building the best thing that they knew how to build with the workforce that they had.
What did we decide that in 1954 the Strat was the equivalent in 2019 dollars to $3,000 with a case?
Something like that. Yeah. And people always say Fender was building guitars for the everyman guitars, and they weren't. They were really, really expensive.
Yeah,
you could buy a car for what you could buy.
Really?
Well, yeah.
What were they? 260?
$249, I think, is what the Strat was, and that was without a case, and the case was like an extra $50. Now,
50. Wow.
Yeah. Stuff was really expensive back then, and amps were ridiculous. But I think at some point they finally figured out, well, we have this guitar here at this price, and we need this one, and we need something in between, or we need the student line. And at that point, then you are building to a price point.
Sure.
But the Strat was an all-out, this is as good as it gets.
What about
kind of
the Esquire Broadcaster Telecaster?
Well, I think
same idea.
Yeah, I think that was the same idea.
Yeah.
And I mean, what do we need? You boil it down to what does this guitar have to do? What do we need it to do? What can we sell it for? Don Randall, one of the things that I took away from one of the books that I read was, he said it's the job of the retailer to push the envelope on how much you can sell that product for.
Okay.
So he wasn't. Yeah.
It's easy to confuse a guitar that Fender makes in 2019 for $700 and what they were making in the early 50s, because Fender has, and Gibson does too, everything from a beginner price point guitar to the sky's the limit. You can spend $20,000 on a new Fender or Gibson from their custom place. I'm sure. What was I saw something, the Billy Gibbons signature gold top was $1,700 a few years ago. No, I'm sorry, $1,000.
$16,000. I was like 1,600.
Yeah,
sounds
no,
like
but
a deal.
buy 5 of those.
Go get some. of those.
And so 17,000 because it had Billy Gibbons' signature on it. So there was
this just in.
This just in.
Gary Cherry, Scary Cherry,
Yeah.
Harry Cherry.
We're getting to his
says no.
Okay.
Man, I missed a lot of this because of an earthquake.
Wow.
Waiting to see
where does he live? You sent him that box.
I did, but we send so many boxes.
Yeah.
I think he lives in California, but I could be wrong.
He lives
that
in,
would be earthquake country.
Wow, earthquake.
I
That
know.
sucks.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Okay, well, Gosling Creative says Gibson guitars can't stay in tune. Myth?
Myth. Absolutely myth. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's all set up stuff, and I think most of that kind of stuff, like Strats don't stay in tune. This doesn't stay in tune. It's tuners slip, and it's just set
Yeah,
up.
tuning. Any issues with tuning is because something moved, and there's
Mhm.
now
Or something didn't move.
when everything else moved, something didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's a setup thing more than anything else,
Mhm.
and it's usually a lousy cut nut. You know,
Mhm.
you're tuning, and then you tune, nothing happens, and then tink, and then
Mhm.
it shoots. So
Yeah, you should be able to push behind the nut at the tuners, and the guitar stays in tune. But if you push and it all of a sudden is out of tune, that means probably that the nut is sticking.
yeah,
And and you're allowed to tug on the strings a little bit and make sure that the wraps are around the tuning peg really tight. And other than that, I don't know. People talk about stretching the strings, like the strings need to stretch.
There's steel.
They don't really stretch. It's everything else just kind of seating in.
Sets in.
Yeah, is really what's going on.
So now the Gibson has a handful of things working against it, though, in the tuning stability department. Having said all that,
Okay.
one is the strings don't come off the nut straight. So even if the nut's cut perfectly, you got that straight, and then it goes off,
Mhm.
On a tangent.
Yeah.
You also have, in some cases, as much as 17 degrees of headstock angle. That's another one of the, it might as well be the string, going straight and then bonk. It's exactly the same thing in a different plane.
Mhm.
So instead of doing it on the Y axis, it does it on the Z axis. And then there's my all-time favorite. Why does the G string on a Les Paul not stay in tune as well as all the other strings? And the answer is
You're playing it wrong.
No, the answer is it's either the biggest unwound string or the smallest wound string, and that's another one of those things that's just kind of inherently weird and sets you up for another issue to deal with.
Well, I think part of that too is because the G is, the G and the B string.
If they have the G and the D have the most angle off the neck, and the most angle off the nut.
So because of the way the scale works, the G and the B,
that's right.
Those are the ones you notice the most.
Yeah,
it doesn't necessarily mean they're the ones that are going out of tune the most. It's just those are the ones that you hear.
Yep,
that's what I think.
Hope that answers your question.
So, Doc Siltonen, sorry if I put the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable. But Doc said the key ingredient in a vintage guitar, Gibson or Fender, is time. Guitars you're building today will 100% sound better in 50 years.
Well, okay.
There's no argument there.
Maybe.
I don't. Well, I don't think he's asking a question. I think that's what
just
he.
a nice thing
that's
that
what
he said
says.
to you guys. I just thought you might want to hear it.
So
yeah.
I don't think that you have to wait 50 years to get a decent sounding guitar.
No,
though.
he said in 50 years it'll still sound great.
Yeah,
it's going to stand the test of time.
Maybe. Sure. The problem with that is that some people think only old guitars are good. And what happens is you have people going back to, guitars that in the 80s you couldn't give away are now worth huge money. And what changed? The only thing that's different is they sat around in someone's closet.
Like the Flying V's in the 50s.
No, the Norland era. So I was at a garage sale in Amarillo, Texas, and I had the chance to buy a 70s Les Paul for $300. This would have been in 89 or 90. Then I didn't buy it because I'm like, well, that's a dumb guitar. And now it's probably worth 10 times that, what's different? The guitar didn't age
up
that much. Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
It's time. I don't. Yeah.
I think that some of that is you get a second cool about how neat it is that it's old. But hey, I really like vintage guitars. I can't afford it. Oh, there's one I can suddenly afford. Now I like that one. That's not to say that all old guitars aren't awesome. And it's certainly not to say that all old guitars are great just because they're old.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Some guitars aren't vintage. They're just old. Vintage
I think
is a
I've owned
really
a bunch of
fancy
those.
word.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, old things are fun.
Yeah, they're definitely cool.
So, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're better. And
No.
it doesn't necessarily mean you can't get that same thing.
And again, this is one of those things, guys. If you like vintage guitars, rock on. And
Yeah.
I like vintage guitars. I know Chris does.
I love vintage guitars.
But to say that, there's a lot of great guitars being made right now, not just by us, but by a lot of our buddies. And even companies like Fender and Gibson don't overlook those guitars because they aren't old. How about that?
Yeah.
Okay. What else is going on in the world of?
I'm sorry, I've been replying to things. And
okay.
Okay, here we go. Give me a second. I was a little too fast. There's a lot of good, like, jibber jabber about the matchstick guitars and the guitars.
Yeah. And we can't see any of the comments, so
that's another thing. Yeah.
Because if we sit here and read comments, then it's just Matt and Chris reading.
Yep. And no one wants to. You can see our eyes going
because I move my lips because I'm not that.
That's why you
not that stronger reader.
Position the microphone right in front of your face so you can't see it.
Well, Happy Ads asked if you guys do weight relief.
Absolutely, yeah. The Challenger guitars are all weight relieved. There's 13 strategically placed chambers in each one of the Challengers, and then covered up with a maple top. Actually, 14 if you count the gigantic wiring
trough.
Yeah, race.
And then people forgot about
like
the trough. People forgot about like talking about the matchbook, the matchsticks, and the toothpick and the jawbreaker guitars.
Okay, yeah.
Nobody brought up the old skateboard guitars. This is already glued up like freaking plywood. And you're gluing up plywood to plywood.
More plywood.
How freaking heavy is that shit?
Do you remember the band the Surf Punks in the 80s? That one guy had a guitar.
My board.
Yeah.
My beach.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't know those guys.
They had the guitar player had, among other things, a skateboard that was also a guitar. I think it was the Skatar, and you could ride it like a skateboard, or you could play it like a guitar, and maybe you could even do both at the same time. I can't remember, but that was a fun band.
The Captain and Tennille, the captain Daryl Dragon, one of his brothers was
really
was
in
one
the
of the
Surf
head
Punks?
guys of the skate punks.
He's one of the head guys.
There's like 3 Dragon brothers, and they got their DNA all over California music left and right.
Do you think that the reason that the Surf Punks were as well known as they were was because of the captain?
No, I don't. I forget. I read somewhere why they were all of a sudden a thing, but
at the risk of going back in time and asking you about an old performer again, what was your favorite Captain and Tennille song?
When I was a little kid, I am of the age that when they were really, really popular, I was just kind of getting into music a little bit.
Sure.
And I think "Love Will Keep Us Together"
was that okay?
Was
I couldn't
their
even
big
tell
hit.
You, like,
and my mom had the record.
Yeah.
And I had just gotten a guitar, and it had a strap. And I had this. I think she might have given me one of her blouses that looked kind of Neil Diamond-y, you know. And I should probably be telling this story, but I'll finish it.
Yeah.
And I would sit there and play the guitar, or hold the guitar and pantomime to "Love Will Keep Us Together."
Who did Muskrat Love?
That was Captain and Tennille.
That was Captain and Tennille as well. Okay, all right, good.
Yeah, but yeah. And then I turned 15, and things changed.
I
was like 6. Yeah, then my friends came over and watched me do it, and they all made fun of me.
Did you put on a show? You invite everybody from your class?
Yeah.
Like the kid from the what's the show with the Clearys?
Oh yeah,
the kids are all right.
Yeah. Like, why is that off the air?
I don't know. It didn't get picked up for
his
another
puppet.
All right. So anyway, here's an update from Faculty Links, aka Gary Terry.
Okay.
Terry Harry.
About where he lives and
yeah, I think earlier said Peru. But just yesterday, a new volcano was discovered. So
we still don't know where he lives.
Peru.
No, he doesn't. We shipped him a guitar.
EQ. What's Peru EQ?
By
the equator? I don't know. CQ
I think he does. I think he doesn't want anybody to know where he lives.
Just screwing.
He's a top secret guy.
Look,
we don't know what his name is.
I could look him up. I know your address, dude. Yeah.
You know his address? Why are we talking about this?
Well, I could look it up.
Does he live in the Midwest? General theory.
We don't know.
It's not Peru.
He's a mystery wrapped in an enigma,
Mhm.
baked into a question,
Mm-hmm.
smothered in a gravy of
Mhm.
what's another
In a
synonym?
Jello mold.
In a Jello mold of mystery.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here Greg Jason says we all complain too much about Gibson.
Why do we do that?
There's a lot of haters for Gibson.
I don't get that.
I don't really get it either. Every Gibson I've ever looked at, and I don't like go looking for issues, but I mean, they're nice. I think people are upset that they cost as much as they do. But if you start looking at the amount of time that it takes to make some of this stuff in the ways that they make it in America, it costs that much. If you're gonna make any money doing it, it costs that much.
Yeah. I still love Gibsons, and I want to see Gibson succeed. I hope that the new guy is I hope that he's watching my videos and he's using that as a guiding direction for the new company to move into.
What would Matt do?
What would Matt do if given half the chance? Well, it's all out there. You can watch it.
You'd make Les Pauls.
And that's it.
That's it.
You'd make SGs too.
Oh yeah, that's their number one selling guitar.
It's gotta be because it's right. It's definitely cool. It's not. It's under $2,000. It's under 1,500, or I think it's right around there.
Yeah,
right?
and they even have some that are cheaper than that, and they're so much labor less intensive.
If I was running Gibson, there wouldn't be any less expensive Gibsons. They'd be way more money, because then it would be like, all right, if you want to make the guitarist's guitar, we're gonna make owning a Gibson means something,
right?
And so that's like, there's no $500 Gibsons.
Pride in ownership.
Yes, and part of pride in ownership is exclusivity. So you already have the name. You can trade on that name for a long time. And sorry, everybody who has a $1,500 Gibson. If I was in charge of Gibson, thankfully for everybody, I'm not.
Especially Gibson.
Les Pauls would be $5,500 for standard. That's it. Boom. And they would all be immaculate. And they would,
that would be another thing to look at. Yeah.
It would basically be this is how I would ruin the Gibson company. Is I would make it, the whole thing, be a custom shop, and there's no way you could do that. But
no, not at the volume and the number of guitars that they sell. So it's And
like I said, thankfully for everybody, including Gibson, no one's listening to me on that. So
I think most people can't actually fathom the number of guitars that these companies make a year, or even a day, or even an hour. It's absolutely ridiculous. And even back in the day, you look up production numbers from the 60s, and you're like, oh, okay, well, there's still only 365 days a year, and you got holidays and weekends.
John Harden just said that you would sell more if Gibson went up. Duh.
Yeah, and it's just, how do you do that? It's in a lot of ways, it's impressive that they turn out as well as they do at all.
Let's talk about that. If you were, especially before CNC tools and stuff like that, back in the 50s, when it was mostly hand guided machine tools like what we have here, you got however many days a year, and you've got if you're Gibson and Fender, you're probably selling every single thing you can make, and you're making a buttload of stuff.
Well, there's a lot of comments.
Hold on a second. Do you do that by having specialized tool operators, or do you do that by having master craftsmen sitting at a bench?
And that's what people are saying.
Yeah.
Like, it's just they're too big of a company. Their assembly line, they're cranking it out. I'm paraphrasing the thoughts. Yeah.
Now, having said that, I think that there's a lot to be said for, say, okay, my job station is I wire everything, or I level and dress all the frets, or I scrape all the binding. You're going to get really good at that job and really fast at it, faster than Chris or I, who does it half a dozen times a year. Okay, I'm talking about like scraping binding, or like putting the little nubs on the ends of these things. We don't do that very often, but at Gibson they do it every single day, 150 times an hour, or whatever it is. So.
Right.
But you got one guy that does this perfectly and one guy that does this doesn't mean they're going to be fluid together all perfectly.
Absolutely.
You got to build on the last piece, not just have blinders onto your little.
Well, and the quantity of that stuff that they do. I remember reading something from a guy that worked at Fender, and he started out, basically sweeping floors and moved up from there. And he was doing contours. Let's just say he was doing forearm contours. He was
Okay.
doing over 100 of them an hour.
Wow.
And
Didn't they get paid by the piece?
And they pretty much got paid by the piece, or they at least had a quota to meet.
Yeah.
So pretty soon, if you fall behind a little bit, a couple of those aren't going to be red hot. And
I guess there's that. Yeah.
you know, and it's like, I can't even, I get tired of doing that kind of thing when we do 3.
Yeah.
Let
Yeah.
alone 100 an hour for 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
You know, rinse and repeat.
Yeah,
So,
the number of fret levels and dress that we do a year is probably what one of those ladies at Gibson or Fender does in an hour.
yeah, and you know,
It's probably less than what they do in an hour. Actually.
everybody wants a better guitar, but nobody wants to pay for it.
That's right.
As far as, you know, the
Well, not
factory
nobody,
stuff.
but
Well, and but for
even
the most
like-
part, people that bitch about Gibson,
well, think about
What
the
if it was a-
custom shop.
extra $1,000.
It's
Yeah.
not really, you can't get whatever you want.
Well, no.
You know, and I've kind of acquiesced a little bit on that too, like the Fender custom shop's not a custom shop thing. I made that video several years ago, and people kind of called me out and took me to the mat on that. And you know what? I kind of agree with them now. It's like, well, we make Fenders, so they're just custom Fenders, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, but you can't call up Fender and go make me a double neck Les Paul. Fuck you, we're not doing that.
No, but I think in a lot of ways the Fender custom shop is a product of what the public wants too.
Mhm.
As far as, you know, we always go, well, why are there so many Tellys and Strats?
Gosh,
That's what
people
everybody
like it,
wants.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a point where the market becomes saturated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, well, Chris Hatton says he's so sick of the industry. This kind of reminds me of like record labels telling you what music you're going to listen to. So sick of the industry telling us what's cool instead of making something worthwhile. Old guitars sound good because they were made by skilled tradesmen. That's why we're here watching this.
Chris, thank you very much for that. But I might. Chris and I are guitar makers. The guys back in the old days at Fender and Gibson may or may not have been guitar makers. You know, Abigail Ibarra is a terrific pickup winder, but
She was doing it wrong.
she was doing it wrong. That's why hers are better than everybody else's, right? If everybody else, right? I mean, isn't that? Can we agree on
Yeah,
that?
we've never really talked about that, but
Have we-
or
have
that
we not?
story. No, we've
Let's-
never talked about it in public. but
We've got a few more
agreed.
minutes. Let's touch on that.
Okay,
And then I
yeah.
want to talk about
Uh-huh.
woods.
Okay. Okay, so Abigail Ibarra, her pickups are better than everybody else's, and she was supposedly, you know, she was winding pickups to a standard set forth by the Fender Guitar Company,
Uh-huh.
and hers sound different than everybody else's. Why? Because she wasn't doing them the way that Fender told her to do them.
Yeah.
Whether that was right or wrong, she was, and usually it's her pickups were hotter wound. They've got more windings on them.
Mhm.
So what does that mean? It means she probably wasn't paying attention.
Mhm.
And we make jokes that she was sitting around and she's winding pickups and she's telling stories to all her friends about
Sure.
how much fun she had that weekend.
Yeah.
And then she goes, "Oh no, it's fine," and she throws it in the box, and that's that. And that's an
Well, it's
Abigail Ibarra
okay.
pickup.
It's
Yeah,
okay.
and that's fine.
It is okay.
And-
It's actually better than okay.
But I guarantee she didn't think she was doing it any better or different than
Not-
anybody else.
not every accident at the factory was a happy accident.
Yeah, and also I think she was able to write her name on the pickups better than everybody else, and you could actually
You can
read
actually
it.
tell who it
Yeah,
was.
and she was there for a long time. There's a lot of Esther pickups, and people aren't. Well, there's not a lot of them,
They're
but
not chomping at the bit.
they're
to
not
get
chomping
those.
at the Esther pickups, are they?
No one's chomping at the bit to get a not Tadio Gomez
The
neck.
Tadio Gomez necks, yes. Yeah.
So Chris, not you, but Chris on the live podcast, the thing that I can't see. I thank you so much for watching and calling us craftsmen. Yeah, you know, there's a lot of great, and he's right. There were people at both factories. We touched on this before the podcast, actually, Chris. Gibson was ahead of Fender in terms of the workforce being able to make guitars. It took
Mhm.
Fender a little while to get everybody up to speed with what they wanted to do. And even Fender themselves had to go, how do we want to do this? How can we make this marketable and mass producible?
Mhm.
You know, so and again, I love Fenders and Gibsons, particularly Gibsons. Don't
Yeah,
be fooled by
yeah.
my what I would do with Gibson if I had the chance thing. But and so thanks again for for giving us props for that. That actually means quite a bit.
This kind of all goes back to that idea that, oh, so you made a guitar. That's really neat. Now make me 10 more.
Now make me 200 more that
Yeah.
are exactly the same.
Yeah, and really that always seems to be as and it's awesome that there was pride in workmanship and all of that. And I think all of those companies had that. You can't have a company that makes something by hand that you don't have those people there.
You
But
don't
the real
want
story,
the guy who's not happy. You don't want the guy who is pissed that he's there to be on the line.
Yeah. But the real story is the guy who said, "This is how we're going to do it. We're going to do this, then we're going to do that, then we're going to do that."
Comes up with a sequence and and then develops his workforce to develop that product.
Exactly. Yeah. To me, that's the really interesting part of all of this.
Yeah.
So
let's talk a little bit about woods, because Gary, Scary, Harry, Cherry. I don't know at what point Gibson wood is considered one of the good ones, but everybody says that about their guitar. Oh, this is one of the good ones.
The good wood era.
Yeah, the good wood era. How about this? If you can buy an actual Gibson Les Paul, not one of those knockoff ones that says Gibson, but it's actually not.
yeah.
If you can buy an honest to God Gibson Les Paul for $300, you're doing good. Especially if it has binding.
Yeah.
Remember they made those faded series for a while that were the studio ones, and I think you could get those for $5.99 brand new.
Yeah.
So old growth Honduran mahogany, that's neat, but man, there's so many stories about old growth, and what was the other one? Second cut, and all these different things. And I'm not going to say that wood is wood, but there's no old growth wood anymore that's being used for guitars, and anything that you can get now, it doesn't mean that it's bad, but it means it's probably grown in a tree farm somewhere.
And wood is a renewable resource.
Absolutely. Yeah. So not everyone knows this, but Mrs. Texas Toast has actually been to what was it? The
Lumber boot camp.
Lumber boot camp. Where was that? In Idaho?
Idaho.
The only state
University of Idaho.
Woodshule, the only state in the union.
My favorite town, Moscow, Idaho.
Isn't that where
I've been talking about it for
Barely
years,
Legal
and then
Lance
Barely Legal
is
Lance
thinking
came
about
over and
moving
was
there?
talking
That's
about it
funny.
too.
Well, so let's talk. Are there any more questions before we get to telling people a story about this and a little bit of what's coming up next week?
Well, here's an interesting comment.
Sure.
Bam Mosey says a CNC machine is still just a tool, air quotes, for luthiers. It's not different from using a template and power tools, just quicker and more accurate. It still needs all the sanding, assembly, finish, fretwork, etc.
There you go.
It's true.
There you have it. I don't want to get into a CNC topic thing today, but okay, sure. Yeah. I don't have any problem at all with CNC tools. A lot of people think I do, but I don't. I don't own any, but I'm okay.
It's not as dangerous though.
There's a lot of things that
bleed on the wood. That's tone blood.
There's a lot of stuff that CNC does great, and that's cool. So there's a big difference between Paul Reed Smith's CNC machine and the CNC machine that they sell at Rockler. I will say that they're both very effective, but there's a big difference between those two tools. What else we got? Anything?
Oh, lots of stuff. I'm like 8 to 15 minutes behind.
Okay. Well, so if again, one of the things that about this podcast is we are entirely viewer funded. So we don't have super chat. We're not monetized, any of that stuff. So we're going to miss some questions. And if we miss your questions, I'm sorry, come back next time and ask it again. And hopefully we'll get to it. Or what you can do is you can put that in the comment section below and we'll answer it there. That's probably the best way to make sure your questions get answered, because I read all the comments, every single last one of them, even the ones where people tell me I'm an imbecile.
Even if it's particularly salty, then maybe tune in next week and we'll answer it then.
Maybe
with a salty reply.
That's right. There's someone who's they're disliking every single video that we have. He's like the first, and I say he because I wonder. I think I know exactly who.
Well, and you saw I was nowhere near my phone.
I know.
Because I think for a while you thought it was me.
No, I didn't.
on the daily.
I thought that it was. That's right. There was a time when I thought it was you and Mike Learn, but now
it could still be Mike Learn.
My new current guy who's disliking everything. I think I know who it is. Anyway, so I want to tell you guys a little bit about this guitar in case anyone wants a project.
Yes. Thank you for bringing bringing it back there
Okay.
because somebody asked about it.
Someone asked about. So this is a project guitar that we built this one many. This is 3 years old.
At least I
And
don't
been
recall.
It's been sitting in the guitar dungeon downstairs.
This guitar was the woodwork was pretty much done by the time I arrived on the scene. I think.
Here's how old this guitar is. It still has lacquer. It's a
Wow.
lacquer finish guitar.
all the way
That's
through
old.
too.
Yeah, it doesn't have polyester sealer and
Mhm.
lacquer. It's got
Yeah.
all lacquer.
Yeah.
So this is we made a bunch of these. The stop tail's probably gonna fall off when I do this. We made a bunch of these carved top. Maybe not. They're good. We made a bunch of these carved top single cutaway guitars. Let me see. I don't know if you can see that it's actually carved. It's got a real live bell carved.
Yeah, you can see.
It's a mahogany.
And it doesn't have the wood pickup covers.
No, it still has. That's right. It
cavity
still has
covers,
plastic cavity covers. It has the mahogany back, mahogany neck. It's got a, not very super awesome maple top, but it's got a really cool.
It's nice and clear.
A T burst. Let's see. It has this old headstock that we don't use anymore. Okay. All right. Hold on a second here. Now. You got it. Thanks. So I know it's not weight relieved.
It's not bad.
The neck is it needs to be tweaked, and the frets need to be probably ground down a little bit and redone it. And Chris and I were looking and we're like, I just don't want to do it. So we're gonna sell this guitar as is for $300. And if you how about this? As is minus the stop tail and tune-o-matic. If you want the bridge, we'll sell you the whole thing for $350. So if anybody's interested in a project guitar, you can have this one just like it is right now for $350, or if you don't want the bridge and tailpiece, $300. So there you go.
And if you want pots and a switch,
well, whatever.
We have
Not
that,
like pot
and
from
we can-
Colorado. We
No,
can't
no,
send that. in
no.
the
You want
mail
potentiometers.
tonight.
You want potentiometers.
and a
Okay, so
switch.
there you
We
go.
have
There's a
those for
little
it, too.
commercial for that. If you guys have any interest in that, send me an email, or you can leave it in the comment section below, and we can get that out to you. Ain't no thing. So, are there any more questions we need to get to? Can we wrap this one up?
Oh yeah, I'm so far behind.
Okay, so guys, thanks for tuning in. We're just over an hour right now. This is the Texas Toast Podcast. We do this every Sunday at 5:00 Mountain Time. And remember, it is entirely viewer funded. So thank you to all of our Patreon members. If you appreciate content like this, you might want to go over to our Patreon page and consider becoming a member, because even $1 a month goes a long way to helping us bring you cool stuff like this. Coming up next week on the YouTube videos, we've got some videos about how we glue in Gibson style necks, and actually as well as our Challenger style necks. We've got a video on that. We've got a few more videos about the vacuum pump that we're using, and maybe some other things too. The website is still under construction, so please keep checking that one, and check back early, check back often, etc., etc. Is there anything else we wanted to get at? Like what's
just
going
real
on?
quick.
Yeah.
I don't know where it is now, but somebody was like, "Oh, I'd love to have it. It's not a lefty." And I said, "You need to ask about any unfinished lefties, because I think you might have
There
one or
might
two."
be one. Like, I can't do anything with it until after the lawsuit
Yeah.
thing.
Well, yeah.
So anyway, gosh, so if you appreciate content like this, again, you might want to go check out our Patreon page. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please click the subscribe button, click the notification bell, etc., and you will be notified of our next podcast, which you already know is next Sunday at 5:00. If you can't do, wait a minute, now I'm already saying if you can't do Patreon, but if you can't do Patreon, we totally understand. Please like and share this video as often as you possibly can. And if you want to show us some love and you need guitar parts, check out our industry partners who are listed below. And in some cases, there's even a little bit of a discount code. Oh, one more thing. Someone asked if there was a discount code for Hipshot. No, there is not a discount code for Hipshot. There is a discount code for Bitterroot guitars, and they will give you 15% off if you use the code TXToast. Give those guys some love. If you need any Hipshot products, though, what Josh at Hipshot has done is he's made us a Hipshot distributor. So we can get all your Hipshot stuff for you, and we can make you good deals on that stuff too.
I think there were a bunch of questions about that last week.
Okay.
And I screwed up and gave the discount code for the other place.
Okay.
Well,
yes.
yeah, but We're not really in the retail end of the
No.
Hipshot thing quite yet. So
Yeah, it's
you know,
forthcoming.
we may or may
quickly.
not be able to help you out with that. Ordering one set of tuners,
Yeah.
it's tough for us to get it from Hipshot, and it's tough for us to ship it to you.
But if what you want to do is you want to have a guitar with Hipshot gear on
Absolutely.
it, then
Yeah.
we're your guys.
And we get a little bit better deal from them now, so
That's right.
the price of the guitar is going to be a little bit less.
Yeah.
you know?
So thanks everybody for watching, and join us next time. If you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them in the section below. As always, this is Matt at Texas Toast reminding you that if you're so smart, build it yourself. That's what I do. Thanks for watching.
He does. He builds them himself. I've seen him do it.
Weenie roller.
Oh, we're not.